All right, we're back here on the podcast. Mark Schindler's back. The audio problems have ended. I can hear him again.
I'm alive. Incredible. Yeah, dude, what a wild time. I have no idea what the hell just happened, but we're back and we're ready to
I
talk about Jett
also,
Howard.
yeah, genuinely have no idea what just happened. But hey, we're here for it. We don't have a thumbnail. We're just like kind of rolling. This is like the most like just straight up like bootleg copy of this video humanly possible, and it's going to be glorious. We're going to have the most fun possible with it. Um, let's start with Jett Howard though. Let's talk about what we've seen from the 6'8" Michigan. I don't know, wing, secondary ball handler. I don't know what you want to call him, Mark.
That's one of the questions I was going to ask you today. What would you call him? And I think I would call him more of a four. Like I think he's a combo. Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
I think he's a combo forward, but like I'd almost lean into saying he's a four, and not like in a bad way. But I think defensively, I think that he needs to be a four, or at least that's where he's at right now in some ways, which I guess is what makes it interesting to talk about. But
Yeah.
um, I really like Jett, man. I talked to I think I texted you about him before the year started. I was like, dude, why is this guy not on boards? Because like I'm biased.
Yeah.
Like I loved watching him at IMG because I love Jarris Walker, so I watched IMG a ton and I saw Jett like all the time. Like Jett's really good. I love Jaden Bradley. Like that team was just very fun. Keontae's there too. Man, that team was fucking awesome. Now I think about it. But like again, this Michigan team, I think you have to start by just talking about the context of this Michigan team overall. This team is good-ish. They've played a decently tough schedule, like relative to some other bigger teams. Like obviously Kentucky was a tough matchup. Kentucky's a good team. Um, I Eastern, as far as going like with some of the lower mid majors, like I think that Eastern's a fine matchup. Like they've done some decent things in terms of what they're playing against. There is not a single player on this team I look at and I can say consistently that they can get a stop in isolation.
Yes.
That is bad. When you consider,
How would you rank Hunter Dickinson defensively on their team? I
I'd
think
rather
he's near
not.
the top of the list. No, but this is my point. Like, I think Hunter, who has his own deficiencies in terms of being able to move in space and in terms of being able to operate that way, I would say he's one of their three best defenders right now. He's pretty good at just being big, using his frame to take up a ton of space on the interior. He's not terrible with his angles and ball screens anymore when they play him in the drop. Like,
Mhm.
he is developed into a good college defender while also acknowledging the fact that there are real concerns down the road for him.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I am confused. Well, not confused is the wrong way to put it. I think part of what I struggle with sometimes in scouting is that I like have all my own thoughts about the team and having seen like all these guys play in other settings, having them see play here, like I'm not privy to practice and being there. But so often I watch this team and I'm just like I'm already at the point this far into the season where I'm like, just play double big and blitz every ball screen because you guys cannot get a stop in any way, shape, or form. Like I actually like I know that he
Wait,
has.
who's the second big you want to play?
Oh, I would play Taurus Reed. I would start Taurus
I
Reed.
would not. I
Oh,
disagree.
wow. Oh, wow. That's a
Yeah,
fighting
this is the
point.
first time we've like significantly
Oh,
disagreed.
I love
Uh,
Taurus Reed so much.
I like the idea of him,
Yeah,
and I
but I
like
think that's
him.
part of what's difficult is like there has to be willingness to play a freshman through freshman mistakes. And I think in terms of like anybody who can actually cover ground and like be competent on defense, like I think it's him compared to what their other options are. Like I mean, I think Isaiah Barnes could play more.
That's
Like
the
they
guy
just
that I would probably play a little bit
yeah.
more, to be
The
honest.
problem's
But
just been like Jalen Llewellyn and Kobe Buffkin, like both bring positive things, but in tandem, like their defense has been really difficult on both on and off the ball, and that's what's been problem. Like it's not just guys on the roster who have one flaw. Like it's just like consistently, I don't know what they do defensively. Um, and that's not trying to be like overly negative. I think they're going to figure things out. Juwan's a really damn good coach. But that's just what I think I do just want to like lay that out before we absolutely grill Jett's defense because Jett has also contributed to the defensive problems. Um, he, much like we just talked about with Scotty, he has some, like, he's a very funky athlete. Like, I think,
you know what? Let's put a pin in this.
yeah,
Because I want to do this, like, comprehensively, right? And I don't want to like jump around all over the place.
for sure.
So let's start with the good stuff, because I think that's like, you and I like to talk about the positives on guys.
That is
and
true.
I just don't want to jump into like shitting on Jett Howard, right?
Yeah.
Jett Howard's really good. I think Jett Howard is like a borderline-ish top 20 prospect in this class. 6'8", real skill as a ball handler, real ability to like take dribble handoffs. I think that's the thing that Michigan does super, super well with him, is they get him moving on the fly, right? They get him moving in dribble handoffs, try and get him downhill before he catches so that he has a chance to actually get into the paint, because his first step is not all that good. The big thing, though, is that he's very comfortable handling the ball at 6'8", and it's just hard to find guys that are 6'8" and can handle the ball like this. The other thing is very obviously the shooting, right? Jett Howard is shooting 49% from the field, 42.6% from three on 7 3-point attempts per game right now. He's averaging 2 assists per game so far for Michigan. And when you watch him shoot, it's how quick he gathers into the shot. He gathers off the hop a decent amount of the time. There was the first play in this Kentucky game that we watched, like, catches, doesn't bring the ball down, catches it his waist and just goes directly up, right? Without any sort of real issue with it, right? Those are the skills that you're just like, oh, wow, like this is immediately translatable. The shooting, the ball handling, the passing, dribble pass shoot guys at 6'8" tend to be fairly successful in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's just to take a step further, it's the variety that he gets a shot off. Like, he missed it in this game too, but he had, I mean, they had winding down shot clock at the end of the first half, and he took a pull-up three from like 27, 28 feet running out of the slot. And like, it's obviously it didn't go in, but like form, process, everything looked good. And I believe in him as a pull-up shooter. Like, he's taken pull-up threes and looked good this year. He's capable of running off screens, then screening himself, and then flying off that. Like, it's so weird, because like, I mean, it's hard to, like, I think his movement skills are what are so interesting to me. Like, at his size, like, he's really good at doing some things that at like an elite level in the way that he moves, but then there are other things where there's like a very real not eliteness to the way that he moves. Like, part of what makes him such a fascinating ball handler at 6'8", like, he maneuvers through space incredibly well in a straight line.
Super shifty.
Like, he's really, really shifty, and he has a tight handle too for his size. But it's like, I pointed this out, and there was a really good angle in the Virginia game, very similar to what Adrian Griffin Jr. did last year, in terms of like the pass he has to take if you're asking him to like turn, or like, it's like the Titanic. And I clipped this because it was like, part of it was Reese Beekman was awesome on him and just like stuck like him to like glue off the ball. But like, he cannot just like he can't come off a screen and just like do like a 35 angle cut. Like, he has to like wide turn if he's coming off of like staggered screens out of the corner. And that's not like inherently terrible, but it's more like in terms of like the actual getting into actions, making things happen quickly, cutting down margin for error. Like, that's the kind of thing you look at and like, can you improve that? I think we've seen AJ be able to improve on some of that a little bit this year. Part of that just due to NBA spacing, I think. But that's stuff that plays in defensively as well.
So here would be my question to you.
Yeah.
How much of it, in terms of him taking wide angles, do you think is footwork versus lack of explosion? Like, just feeling like he has to take the wide angle because he doesn't have a great first step? Because I also think his footwork on drives is actually pretty poor. Like, he takes a lot of those like weird, like right foot plant, right foot floater kind of things that just look funky. I think that he often gets kind of caught between steps, it feels like, when he's driving to the rim. So how much of this do you think is like fixable in terms of him getting down the right footwork and getting to the point where, as he gets more comfortable and works with trainers and everything, he'll be able to make that work, versus just having inherent limitations physically?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I would lean probably more into the explosiveness, just because like, I think a lot of it's his hips. Like, he just really struggles to, again, like quick twitch with his hips. Like, he's really good. Like, his leg flexibility and upper body flexibility is awesome, which again is like what really helps him to be a low to the ground ball handler who's able to be a little bit shaky. But it's the actual turning that I think is like a real problem right now. And again, like noting like problem as like a first round prospect and being like somebody who ends up potentially as a lottery guy, like those are the things that are separating him from me right now. And I agree totally on the footwork because I think that plays a part in his finishing inside the arc. Like I don't think that his finishing inside the arc is terrible, but for somebody who's 6'8", it is a little bit lacking, especially considering how good of a passer he is. But he does have really good touch. Like the floater is really pop for him. One thing that's interesting, like this is more projecting out, I feel like he's a guy I would really like to see develop a post game. Like I think that's going to be huge for him in terms of like, and I think part of that's because I do see him more as a 4 than a 3, just based on what his attributes are.
So the funny thing is that you're saying you want him to play the 4 and develop the post game. I almost want the post game more if he's like going to be a 2.
Because I want it for everything. I think I'm just thinking more in terms of like if you're going to get more out of his playmaking, but also the scoring. Like I think if you want to see more of him be able to get into like, okay, I'm going to face somebody up and take them off the dribble and finding ways for him to kind of like, again, not the same thing, but like thinking same mold of player, like a TJ Warren type guy. Like he doesn't have.
It's not Donovan Mitchell.
not
the
Donovan
most
Mitchell.
comparable player.
Yeah, definitely not. But like in terms of just like a guy who like, no, he doesn't necessarily have. He either has limitations to handle or explosiveness to be I'm going to create everything from the perimeter myself type guy. Like, okay, what if we get you the ball from 17 feet? You back somebody down and you dribble the ball out, you face up. Like there are ways to like make it exciting and be like, okay, well then we can have guys who are cutting off 45 and like finding ways to get your vision going and also improve you as a scorer. Like there's a lot of stuff there that's just really exciting with him.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the name TJ Warren because I think that is the guy that he reminds me most of when I watch him. More the like modern TJ Warren, not the NC State TJ Warren that you might be too young to remember. NC State TJ Warren.
I have gone back and watched NC State TJ Warren. Good God, that was like what an unreal score. But
also just like the most bizarre projectability in terms of scorer because of like everything was dictated on the floater. It felt like, right? Yeah. Everything was him trying to get to the mid range to get to that little push shot. So like different, more the modernized version of what TJ Warren became, but there are a lot of similarities there in terms of the physicality, in terms of the way that his body mechanics work, in terms of the shooting, because TJ became an unbelievable shooter and has the real touch that he displayed on floaters. Jett more from 3, I think. So that guy goes top 20, like no questions asked. I think it's just how high does he rise?
For those who need just a quick reminder, TJ Warren, his sophomore year at NC State, had a 35.5% usage with an 8.6% assist rate, while also shooting 58% on 15 twos a game. He was like one of the best college scorers I've ever seen. He averaged 25 and 7 that year. Like he was so fun. And it's interesting too, because he's a guy who I think you can definitely point at and be like, he's worked quite a bit to improve like his core strength and like not being like he had some hip stiffness issues, especially when he was in Phoenix.
Right.
And I feel like that's really improved for him as well. Like I wouldn't call him a lockdown defender by any stretch, but he's somebody who really, especially in Indiana, improved on that end. Still has his issues off the ball, but like I think that again, like same idea of like a really versatile forward who just, and I actually would argue like part of it is like TJ's mechanics. Our mutual friend PD Webb wrote a really awesome piece about this, but like TJ Warren's shooting mechanics are wild, and he just wills the ball into the rim because he's an incredible. I mean, he has some of the best touch in the NBA. But like when you look at what his shot looked like at NC State, like I mean, the leg flares like pretty wild. It's not always replicable, and like to me, Jett's shot is just. I mean, it's in so much different a place than where TJ's was coming out.
But it's funny because the one thing that Jett does on the shot from time to time,
and like he always does the sideways thing too. It's like it's very aesthetic. Like I love it. You want to laugh? I got chewed out by a scout friend of mine because I did not say that it was a good shot, but I said Chuck O'Bannon Jr. has my favorite jump shot in basketball because It is like I just have no idea how that is the same shot every time. Like, right? Like it's like that shot is just wild to watch. There's
It's
like
a
eight
wild
different
shot to
moving
watch. I'm with
parts,
that.
and
Yeah.
he uncorks it from anywhere. There's just an audacity to it that I appreciate.
I respect the audacity. I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Let's go to Jett Howard's defense now. Now I think it's reasonable to talk about
Mhm.
because we just talked for 10 minutes about Jett being so interesting and fascinating offensively. Um, I think he's pretty bad on defense for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about. The lack of tremendous foot speed in terms of first step, the hip stiffness. It bears itself out in terms of his ability to contain penetration at a really high level.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think this one too, like I think it's important to talk about the footwork here. Like his defensive footwork is everywhere. And I think
Yeah,
what's tough too, as good as his feel is offensively, I don't like his defensive feel right now. Like I think that there's
I
a lot
agree.
of room for it to improve. Like he just kind of feels very tentative at times on defense. I think that's one of the biggest issues for him right now is like he often feels caught between doing two things. And I think that ends up being worse for him than just trying to do one thing really hard. And that's not saying that he doesn't try, but it's again like that's just part of how things work. Um, but yeah, exactly like you mentioned, like the foot speed is not great. He has a lot of length. It just like actually knowing how to use it and be in the right position, I think is going to be key for him the next couple of years in developing that. Um, it does help that he's strong. Like I would definitely consider him strong. Like he's pretty big. Uh, that helps. I think one of the things that has been nice to see is like I do like what his recovery skills can be if he is in the right position. Like he's averaging like 1.4 blocks. It's not because of help side rim protection. It's because he's getting beat and he's able to reach back and block a shot or tip it before it goes into the rim, which I think again, like not great, but like I do think it can at least feel a little
Well,
bit.
and let's just note here that 7 of his blocks came in a 2-game stretch against Ohio and Jackson State.
Yeah, of course.
So like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah,
just
no, I'm
like
not trying to like
take
overdo
it
it,
for
but
what it is, right?
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. So main point because like I've seen like some maybe Jett Howard is a weak side rim protector takes, and I'm like, no, I don't know about that. Let's
No.
chill on that. The off ball defense has been a little bit rough too, and I think that's more where the defensive feel comes into play. The screen navigation, I think there are moments of the screen navigation being okay on tape, but it's mostly bad right now. Which again, like I think that there's room for that to improve. Part of that is the hips. I think also it's just he is not great at dipping his shoulder right now. Like he just gets caught high a lot. Um, so I think there are things that it can really rep out, but a lot's just going to depend on where does he go that helps him improve on those things. Because right now it is like it's very actively negative for Michigan.
Right. Okay. So now's your favorite time of the show, and it's
Yeah.
where I start to ask you this guy or that guy.
Ooh, I do like this because it makes me think a lot.
Yeah. So Jett Howard or Terrence Arsenault?
Oh, I would take Jett Howard. I like Terrence, but Jett at his size, I think he's a much better passer. And I would actually go as far as saying he's a better ball handler. I like Terrence a lot. I think he's a first round guy for me for sure. But like
Yeah.
even with Jett's efficiencies, I'd have him close to the lottery right now. And I think that's based just on how some of the other guys have turned out so far. But yeah, I would go Jett.
I would go Jett. I like Terrence's defense, I think, a little bit more than you do, and his upside long term, which changes. It's almost like different roles to me,
Yeah.
those two, even though they're both like, 6'6" ish wings that are long, in Terrence's case, he's super long at the
I
very
think
least.
my issue with Terrence more so, like, and I think Terrence is really fun and really good, but like, and I believe in like the ball handling and his ability to attack closeouts, and he's a solid passer for his role too.
Yeah.
But I think my issue is gonna be more so defensively. Like he has looked really small in some games.
Yeah.
And
Like
I
if you
think
told me he ends up measuring it like 6'3", 7'5"
yeah,
without shoes, that wouldn't surprise me, I
yeah, like
think.
he has the benefit of being a much better, like way better offensive player. But like I do think he's gonna have some of the same Nate Hidden issues. Like in terms of like, even though he is really active and in the right places and has length, he is caught between like being a 2 and a 3, which just inherently I think has been an issue for guys at times lately.
Yeah.
Again, not meaning that just to be a full knock on him, but that's just to understand reasoning for why I'd be higher on Jett.
Okay. Jett Howard or Bryce Sensabaugh?
Man, see, it's so like the two most polar opposite kinds of players as wings. It feels like I think I would go Jett. Like
I would too.
Bryce is really interesting, but like Bryce is totally a guy who I feel like he has to go to the right team. But he is interesting. Can you?
Well, I picked the one guy that's a worse defender than Jett Howard.
Yeah.
So,
you know what would be a really interesting fit just to see what the hell would happen? Bryce Sensabaugh, Miami Heat.
Yeah, I would love it. That is where I would love him to go.
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be fantastic. Let's do it.
Yeah, I want it.
Lock it in right now. This is where we start to get really fun. Dariq Whitehead or Jett Howard?
This one's tough. Like going off pre-college sample, I'm taking Dariq Whitehead 10 times out of 10.
Okay.
I am a little bit concerned about what he's looked like so far, but I also want to reserve judgment until we get some more time. If this is what Dariq looks like the entire year, then I think it's a bigger question.
Yeah, and that will require a significant amount of like intel work, finding out like, because I've said throughout the year, I think Dariq looks like he's playing a bit heavy compared to what he was back when he was at Montverde, right?
100%.
Like he just looks thicker through his chest because maybe he wasn't able to work out quite as much while he was dealing with the injury early in the season.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that I want to see more of Dariq Whitehead. Grady Dick or Jett Howard?
Jett. I would take Jett. I think Jett's a better shooter. And
strong agree.
Yeah. And is it who's the least harmful, less harmful defender?
Jett is a better defender than Grady Dick,
probably.
I would say. Gigi Jackson or Jett Howard?
It just depends on the team for me. Because we had the Gigi talk last week. I think I think it depends on the team for me. Like all right, so let's say, well, I almost said if it's the Indiana Pacers, take Gigi, but Rick would not like Gigi. So I think Jett would definitely be the Indiana guy. Yeah, I think again, it definitely depends on the team. I think that there's maybe I would probably say Jett right now, just because of I trust in his skill set a lot more right now.
As of right now, I think I would take Gigi and his upside while acknowledging that it might look dumb to do so. Because I think that Jett is like a year and a half older than Gigi, something like that. Like it's a not insubstantial age difference between the two. And Gigi has shown me just enough in terms of like potential upside as a shot creator, particularly on mid-range jumpers, that I would be willing to take a roll of the dice on the defensive upside that I think he could bring compared to Jett.
Yeah.
But that is one where I need so much more information on both of them, and that I think we're going to get it at some point. Okay, so you're a little bit higher on Jett than I am. So let's go into Ausar Thompson.
Oh, I would take Ausar. I think that's pretty easy for me.
Keontae George or Jett Howard?
Keontae.
That's one where I'm not sure anymore.
Really? Okay. I know that Keontae struggled. My goal tomorrow is to watch a lot more Baylor, but I am still a Keontae believer just because he's going to carry a lot more usage. I think he's a much better defender than Jett, being a smaller player. So I just believe a lot more in what he's going to be. But again, I need to watch more Baylor to have a better idea on that one. But I think like that one's probably the closest one out of all of them.
These ones are very close. Okay, last one. The guy that he played on Sunday, Cason Wallace.
Man. Probably Cason, because Cason's going to be just about, other than Victor, Cason's going to be the best defender in this class, probably. Especially when you're factoring like what he brings offensively to actually be on the floor. I still have questions about him offensively, though. Like, I think as good as he is, and I know that you do. And I think like as good as he is defensively, like there are some real like a lot needs to happen for him offensively for me to feel a little bit better about where he's at. But
The
yeah, I
big
mean,
thing
like,
for me on Kaysen is that he's starting to take shots directly off the catch and just firing now.
mhm.
Like if he can do that, if he can literally just catch, take them off the hop, shoot immediately, I think that changes things for him somewhat substantially.
Oh,
In terms
definitely.
of being able to play like a early role and work through some of the on-ball reads at a more substantial level as he develops throughout his NBA career.
Yeah.
So I would take Kaysen, but like it's a similar conversation to what I thought about earlier this week, where I was just trying, or like I was asking like people, Brandon Miller or Kaysen Wallace, and I was like, I think I would rather take Brandon because I think that just having a guy that's 6'9" that can be somewhat switchable defensively and can shoot at a high level is just way more valuable than a guy that's 6'3". Jett is where like the line of demarcation kind of becomes interesting to me as
Yeah.
like a big 6'8" wing who can shoot and do things on the ball. Because theoretically, that guy is more valuable than a 6'3" guard. But Kaysen plays a little bit bigger than being 6'3" because he's so strong and physically stout through his chest and through his lower half, that I think that there's a little bit more um, size to him, and then not quite enough size to Jett in terms of the way he plays defensively.
Definitely. And I think, just going off that too, I knew that Michigan was losing the game and watching as soon as Severe Wheeler hit an off the back foot pull up three. Remember when that happened early in the game? I watched them like, oh, so this is what happened today. But yeah, I mean, their offense is at least starting to get more palatable. They've like run more stuff through Antonio Reeves, which has been good because he's very fun and he's good.
They actually ran an off-ball action to get CJ Frederick an open three. Like they ran like, a double stagger, like almost like ghost screen action that was weirdo, like bizarre, and was really, really hard to guard. And it was just like, oh, okay. Like do that more. That's how you make CJ Frederick valuable. Do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, where has this been the entire time? But they didn't ask
Yeah.
me. The talented team, but yeah, I gotta figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah.
I really wish you hadn't invoked Gigi Jackson's name, not because I don't like Gigi, but more like it made me think about the fact that Georgetown has lost the worst high major team bowl to South Carolina in overtime, which is Jesus Christ. What a game.
I have not watched that game yet, so I'm not going to
Be
pretend
glad.
to even guess what happened there. It did not seem like a fun time.
Was not.
Georgetown has Siena coming up tomorrow,
And
and
Siena's
then
good. So ish.
Syracuse, Xavier, Connecticut, back to back to back.
That
That's
game
probably
against
not going to go
Syracuse is
well.
on ABC. Like, that's atrocious. Like, I get
Yeah.
it because it's an old rivalry game. No. No, I'm like dreading watching. I'll watch it because Judah Mintz is going to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just
Are
yikes.
you excited to watch JV and McCollum just absolutely annihilate everything that they do?
I am, because I haven't watched Siena play yet this year, and I know I need to watch Javion McCollum, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
think some
excited.
of the draft stuff with McCollum is a little bit aggressive, to be
I saw
honest,
somebody
right
say that
now.
he was Bones Highland, and I was like, okay, well, I need to see that before I'm ready to go into that. But it makes me excited to watch him. I'll say that.
Yeah, more of a point than Bones. Just a little bit wilder in terms of like decision making. He has upside. He has real upside to where like if he turned into an NBA player, I wouldn't be surprised. But like, really needs to work through the decision making tree, given that like he's somewhere between 6'1" and 6'2", I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But an interesting player, very interesting
Yeah.
player.
Well, a 6'1", 6'2" guard who can score is going to absolutely tear up Georgetown. So
Yeah,
um,
especially one that's as fast as he is, because he's like, I do get the Bones thing, because JV McCollum is like exceptionally skinny. Like I don't know if you've even like really even watched any clips yet.
I
He
haven't.
is like, if you told me he was 160 pounds, I believe it.
Oh
Like
boy.
totally.
Okay.
Um, So it's going to be that's why I'm like, I don't really buy it as an NBA guy at this point, but there is some real skill and real upside there that could be interesting down the road.
Okay, well, I'm excited to watch him then.
All right, that's all I got for you, Mark. This has been the Game Theory podcast that ended up being in 2 parts on YouTube and in 2 parts on Twitter. What's going on? Tell the people you wrote a Diamond Miller piece. Tell the
Yes,
people
which
about
was
the Diamond Miller
really
piece.
fun. So I did my first draft piece on the 2023 WNBA draft. It's being discussed as a 2-player draft right now, and I get it to a degree. Aaliyah Boston's like a generational talent. Haley Jones is going to be incredible out of Stanford. Diamond Miller is really fun though. She plays at Maryland. Maryland's in a really weird place because I think they had 4 of 5 starters transferred on a really good team last year, and Diamond was the one player who came back, and she was coming off of a knee injury too. And she's been stellar. Like, I think the best way that I can explain her in this format, she is a ridiculously talented driver. So she's 6'3", so think 6'8" when scaling up to the NBA. And she has just incredible balance and footwork on the way that she drives the lane. She's like a good, not great passer. She has some turnover issues. Part of that's because their spacing isn't great. They have a 5 who mostly pops to the mid-range and isn't really a roller, so she doesn't have anybody to like work on her pick and roll playmaking with, but she can run pick and roll. She takes a lot of threes, and almost all of them are self-created or pull-ups, which makes it interesting to project out. Like, she's just the kind of prospect that when looking at the WNBA, we haven't really seen a ton of. She has like the ability to, part of what's fun, like Brenda Freese, who's Maryland's head coach, is a really good tactician. They have some incredible out of bounds sets that I absolutely love. And like, they did some stuff against Notre Dame, who really good team this year, to use her, they'll use her as a screener and then fire off actions, a ton of stuff with elevator screens to try and force switches and just get her, like, because they were doing anything. If you can get a guard on her, she's too strong, and she's got a solid enough handle where you can't really get the ball away from her by just putting a smaller player on her. If she gets a big in space, good Lord, it's over, because she's just way too quick. And then her transition stuff is unreal. She's in like the 99th percentile and amongst all players in college basketball right now, and transition scoring. And then she's got really good touch too. Like, she has a floater.
Yeah.
Everything is really good there. So like, and then she brings a lot as like she's more of a tweener 4-5 who has like the athleticism of a guard, who can rotate, who can defend up a little bit, but is much better at like being a backline defender and has switchability too. And she's just like incredibly fun because I explained it like, are you a video game guy at all?
Here and there.
I explained it. It's kind of like a role-playing game. Like, think of it like all of these like trees where you can branch out skill wise when you're starting a game. And
Yeah.
I explained it. I'm like, Diamond is like starting the game with skill branches in every direction, when in reality most people are getting cordoned off into one. And like, that's just incredibly enticing because the foundation of skills already is like, that's so good. Like, there just aren't a lot of players to do that. The game is in a different place in the W in terms of what space and pace is, but it's starting to change, especially last year. So when you think about what that can do lineup versatility wise, I'm really excited. So I wrote about her. That's over at WNBA.com.
So as someone who doesn't know the rules to the WNBA draft, can you explain to me why Caitlin Clark is not eligible for this draft?
You have to be 22 to be draft eligible, which makes it, yeah, no, I agree. I wish it would be like, part of what is so incredibly fun about this is like, you can see these players and know, like, if I could draft them in this coming draft, I would take them in the top 5. Like, there's this, I'll have to send you clips of her. She has one of the best shot releases I've ever seen. Her name is Sonia Citron. She plays for Notre Dame. She's a sophomore this year. And just like, I think I would consider her the best wing prospect that the W is going to see over the next probably 3 years based on everyone I've seen.
Interesting.
And she's still going to be in college for 2 more years. So it's like, she was ACC freshman of the year last year, just really, really good. So it's fun because like, it's kind of in that wave now where like, I feel like we started to really see this the last couple of years with college prospects, in the NBA, and looking at like, oh, look, all these wings who, or more like forwards, like the fours who are really capable of handling,
Right.
and all the guys who are dribble pass shoot guys that wouldn't have been that in the past because they grew up watching Steph Curry. Like, okay, now we're getting that with on the W side, and that's like incredibly exciting because like just seeing the
Right.
proliferation of talent and game change is really fun like that.
Yeah, the two players in women's basketball and college women's basketball I've seen where I'm like, okay, they could actually like change the pace and space aspects of like the WNBA and the minimal games I've watched the WNBA. Sabrina and Caitlin Clark. I'm just like, Sabrina is just so good in ball screens, like being able to navigate and do a number of different things. Then Caitlin Clark's range is just ridiculous, like in every single capacity.
Yeah, actually, I have a cool thing. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I interviewed Sabrina this last year. First of all, one of the most like uh intense people I think I've ever met and talked to. And she was really kind. She was great. She was really, really great. But like more like anytime I asked a question, she was like just like super direct, like, oh, you know, like this, and this. Like we did like a play breakdown type thing. And it was funny because I mean, as you know, in covering the draft, people don't like to be called combo guards. Like there's just an inherent like badness to being called a combo guard. She called herself a combo guard. Because it was hilarious. I was like, this is like,
and I wouldn't think of her like that either.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the Liberty did a ton this year where they experimented with different ball handlers at the one just to get her off ball so that because like they started with her like kind of running everything off through ball screens and just being like the most pick and roll dominant offense in the league. And so every team was just like, all right, we're just going to 3/4 court press you and go crazy and try and, you know, do everything we can to deny ball screens and make your life a living hell. And it was a struggle for them. Like, I think
they brought the French woman as well.
Maureen Johannes was like, oh my God, she's amazing. Yeah. And so they started diversifying the offense a little bit. And yeah, so it was funny because I was talking to her on like what it was like playing with other guards who are handling the ball more. She's like, yeah, I've always been a combo guard. And like I'll just never forget, I did like a total double take on my business. Like an all-star calling themselves a combo guard is just not something that I would ever expect to hear.
Yeah. No, I mean, I watched, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 Liberty games, and I was like, the Johannes woman, I was like, oh my God, she rules.
She's dude, remind me to do this. I have a bunch of her French league stuff clipped. Like just the most audacious passer I think I've ever seen.
Like the most fun.
It's like it's effective too. Like it's not just like, oh, she doesn't turn over the ball a ton. Like, and she's also too like, okay, she's taking like running sideways one-legged threes and hitting them at a high level. She'll take floaters from like just inside the 3-point arc. Like her scoring craft and ability is just insane. If I remember correctly, I was talking to somebody, a French person who is like a big fan of her game that follows me because of my W content. And they're like, yeah, like she actually grew up playing water polo, which is why like you see some of like the absurd craftiness in her passing. And because she does like just like palming the ball and just like wrapping it. It's like she is like, for anybody who's never seen her play before, she's legitimately the most fun playmaker I've ever watched play basketball. Like, it's Jason Williams.
Liberty games are incredibly fun. They are unbelievably fun to watch. Like some of the most fun I've had watching basketball at any level this year has been watching Sabrina and Johannes like play together and just like do wild shit together.
It's very.
And they have like Dee Richards and like the super fun team. Super fun team. Mark, I'm glad we needed to do women. It's been a while since we've done women's basketball corner on the pod, so I'm glad that we got a chance to do that. I'm glad we got a chance to do Mark's prospect of the week with Jett Howard. We talked for 40 minutes on this stream. I don't know how that happened. We were planning on going for like 15,
very fun,
but worth it. Mark, tell the people where they can find your work.
You can find me on Twitter at MG_Schindler. I should have plenty of stuff coming out the next couple of days. I went to South Bend to go watch Notre Dame and UConn play, and I got to sit in on a Notre Dame practice. That was awesome. I'll tell you more about it off air because I can't actually talk much about that. But point being, I have content coming out from that that I'm really excited about. And yeah, plenty of NBA stuff coming too. It's going to be a busy week of writing, but it's going to be a good one.
I love it. I'm so excited for you to have some stuff go up. I'm in the middle of draft guiding and doing a bunch of different stuff on the back end to prep for draft season right now. So I don't know if I'm going to have anything this week. Maybe next week I might have something fun coming. We'll see in terms of the timing when all of that will come. But go subscribe to the Game 3 podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Go to Game 3 Podcast with Sam Vecini over on YouTube. Subscribe there. Keep it locked here. We'll be back on Friday or Saturday with more. I know that. I just don't know who it'll be with yet. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.